Okay, so welcome everybody. I think we tested the audio connectivity right before. Remember, you have opened the chat in case you want to ask any question or comment during the session. Okay, so I'm gonna start by sharing my desktop. Okay, and we'll go through short presentation. Okay, all right. So by now you should be seeing my screen. So before we move ahead, can anybody confirm that you can see my screen properly, please? Okay, so all right, Simon, thank you so much. So I think you can both hear to me and you can see my screen. Okay, so we are gonna start the session, and as we were saying, this session it's as part of the go live, right? As part of the ramp up for travel, we are having this refresh session dedicated to focal points. All right. So if you have received the invitation, is because you are designated focal points, and you are meant to support end users. All right, during the ramp up and also after the ramp. Okay. So what's your role as a focal point? And then afterwards we will discuss what do we mean by end users. Okay. So your role as a focal point is to provide support, right? So you are going to be the first line of support for the new end users that have access to the portal, right? That have access to the employee self-service in Umoja. Okay, so which are these new users? So which are the users that, because of this implementation, are having new access to raise their own travel requests? So these users are basically national staff, right? Before, national staff used to use FSS to raise their travel requests and spend reports, and now they're going to use Umoja. And the same thing for IUPs, right? The individual uniform personnel, right? These examples of these are staff officers, right? Or UN police, all right? So the ones that, by IUPs, we mean all the uniform personnel that are deployed using a commercial flight, all right? So, for example, contingents and troops that are deployed with a charter flight and no commercial flight, they are not considered IUPs. They are just uniform personnel, and they will not have access to the portal. Right. So, Buford, we have a comment saying that they cannot hear us. So, can anybody else confirm that you can still hear me?
Yes, I can hear you properly.
Okay, thank you so much, Simon. Thank you. All right, so let's move ahead. So as we were saying, you are going to be the first line of support for end users, for national staff and IUPs, and you will be helping them to answer or to resolve basic issues they might face during the first days when they try to raise their own travel request. Okay, so you are here in step 2 of the support model, right? They have their training materials and job aids, but if they cannot do it by themselves, then they will contact you as a focal point, because you are supposed to be in very close to the end users, so you will be supporting national staff and IUPs in their first experience in using the portal. Okay. And then, if you cannot solve the issue, you always have the help of the LP, right? The local process experts that can help you to further analyze the questions, or you have further doubts. Okay. The list of LPEs and also the list of focal points is available in the Umoja DFS website, and we will go later on to this website to see what kind of information you can find there. Okay. So here in this slide, we are going to talk about what kind of travelers are going to be using Umoja, right? Starting from this implementation. Okay, so we have one group of travelers with access to the employee self-service, right? With access to the portal, right? So the new travelers that have access to the portal are, as we said, national staff and IUPs, right? The individual uniform personnel. As we were saying before, individual uniform personnel are all uniform personnel that are deployed with a commercial flight, right? Uniform personnel that are not deployed with a commercial flight, that are deployed, for example, with a charter flight, and they are deployed in a group, they are considered UPs, they are considered uniform personnel, but they are not IUPs, and therefore they will not have access to the portal. Okay, so these two type of travelers will have access to the portal, and then we have other type of travelers that will be having their travel request in Umoja, but they will not have access to the portal. For example, all other uniform personnel that are not IUPs, for example, contingents or troops, they will have also their travel requests raised in Umoja, but the travel request will be raised on their behalf by the travel administrators, right? The same thing for volunteers, right? For UN volunteers, UMVs. And we already had a question in the chat regarding UMVs. So travel requests related to UMVs will be raised in Umoja, but not by the UMV themselves. The travel request for UMVs will be done always on behalf of the UMVs by the travel administrators. Okay. The same thing for consultants. The same thing for individual contractors. So if we need to travel a consultant, let's say within mission or outside mission area, the travel administrator will have to raise the travel request on behalf of the consultant, because the consultant consultants don't have access to the portal, right? So the only two new traveler types that have access to the portal are national staff and IUPs, and these are your roles of focal point will be to support these new portal users on how to raise travel requests and how to raise their related expense reports. All right. So even though UMVs, consultants, and individual contractors and all other non-staff are part of this deployment, right? Everything for them in relation to travel is done on their behalf by the travel administrator. So you will not get any question coming from them on how to raise their own travel request, because they don't have to do it. It's their travel administrator doing that on their behalf. Okay. All right. So let's move ahead. So what has been the training or the distance learning materials that have been provided to end users, to both national staff and IUPs, right? So LPETs have trained all the transactional users in the missions, meaning certifying officers, travel processing officers, so all ones approving the travel request, and even the travel administrators, right? The ones raising travel requests on behalf of UN volunteers, consultants, and so on. But national staff and IUPs, there was no face-to-face training for them, and some distance learning materials have been published, all right, in the umoja.un.org DFS website. And basically, there have been some video recordings published, okay, in the website. We will later on connect to the website and we will see how it looks like. Okay, so the following video recordings have been published on how to log in into production, how to raise a travel request, all right, both for national staff and for IUPs, and how to raise the related expense report, right? So this is for your information in case you have questions coming from a national staff or from an IUP. You can always redirect them to the distance learning material so that they can follow and see how to log in or how to raise the travel documents. Okay. So the recordings are available, as we were saying, in the Umoja TFS website, and in particular, there two different pages have been created: one for national staff and one for IUPs. Okay. So here you have the links. Okay. We will now connect to the Umoja DFS website, and we will show where these distance learning materials are available. All right, so all national staff and IUPs should have received a broadcast communicating these distance learning materials, so they should be aware. But just in case they ask you, you have here that information too. Okay. Besides the video recordings, as always, job aids can be found in the same web link, right? In the umoja.un.org, you have all the different travel job aids for additional information. Okay. So let me show to you the umoja.un.org website. All right. So this is umoja.un.org DFS. So right. So this is the page that has been specifically being created for the DFS. Okay, so here you have all the field support news for any Umoja implementation project, and the first one that appears here is the travel deployment. Okay, so here you have a brief explanation of what we just said, right? So what are the new travel categories that are, travel type that are using now the system, okay? And as I was saying, here you have the distance learning materials for travel, and you have two different pages, one for IUPs and one for national staff. Okay, so we can open each of them, right? So I'm going to open first the IUP. So I have some people saying that there is no voice, so sorry about that. Let me just confirm once again. Can you still hear me? All right, Becky, thank you.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, all right, so there might be a problem. Okay, so let me write again. Okay. All right, so this is the Umoja DFS website, and here you have the videos for the IUPs. Okay. So here you have the video training materials. We have a problem with the secure connectivity here in the RSCE, so I'm here deployed in the RSCE. But all these videos are available in here in this page. Okay, and so you have a video recording on how to log in into production, right? Another one on how to raise a travel request, okay? And one on how to raise a expense report, okay? All right. So these are the three video recordings. So there is a problem with my connectivity to the internet, so somehow I don't have access to YouTube. But you can try, and it should be working. Okay. Let me try to do one thing. Okay, let me see if I can fix it. All right. Just 1 second. All right, and let's see if I can fix it. Okay. Security field certificates. Okay. All right. So let me add here YouTube. If you cannot access the videos, you can contact your CITS. Okay, and they should be able to fix your issues with the videos. All right. So there is okay. There is a problem with the video, but they are live because I just tested couple of minutes before and they were working. All right. So besides the videos, they can also take the assessment, right? Using the link. Okay, so they have 10 questions to be completed, and then if they want to access the training environment, they can always post their request here to access training environment, and they will be provided with a user account and password to access the training environment. All right, and they have also a video on how to log into the training environment. Okay. All right. So yeah. So we have some people saying that in some missions, the YouTube is it's restricted, right? And so we are going to have a look into that. Okay. And because even here in the RSE, because we are deployed in the RSE for the ramp up, we are facing the same issues accessing the video recordings. Okay. So the videos will show how to log into production, how to raise travel request, or even expense report. Okay. So let's go back to our presentation. Okay. And then, so for talking about national staff, okay. So talking about national staff will be able to raise any type of official travel, right, by themselves. So they can use the portal to raise any kind of type of official travel. All right. Remember that in case the trip involves a UN flight, the MOP, right, is still required in FSS. So they still need to raise an MOP request in FSS to have their seat booked in the UN flight. The same thing applies for security clearance or for medical clearance, right? So they still need the traveler still needs to raise MOP in case there's a UN flight, or medical clearance and security clearance. Okay. Regarding the travel request or the PTAs that were raised in FSS before they go live, that was on the 15th June. If the PTA was raised in FSS, the expense report of the F10 will have to be completed in FSS, and national staff will be able to complete their F10 until the 31st of July. Okay. So we are having some comments in the chat about the access to the YouTube videos, okay, and in the page, okay. So it seems that in some missions YouTube is restricted during working hours, so we will have a look into that to migrate, all right, to migrate the videos and make them available. But for sure you have, I mean, this website, it's open, and even from your smartphone, okay, you will be able to see, okay, to see them, or out of the mission area, or after working hours, the video should be working. But we are looking into migrating and making them available in a different site. Okay. So thank you for your comments. All right. So as we were saying, in FSS, the PT8 has been decommissioned fully, but the F10 is still allowed for the PT8s that were raised before the go live of Umoja, right, for this implementation, and the staff members will have time until the 31st of July to complete their F10s. Okay, so just in case you have questions from your colleagues from national staff to on how to submit or how to complete the PT8s that were raised before the go live date. Okay, so let's continue. So for national staff, as we were saying, the national staff can raise any trip within the official travel category, so no matter if it's within mission area or outside mission area, and they can do it by themselves. So national staff can connect into the portal, right, and raise their own travel request, no matter, as we were saying, if it's within mission area, outside mission area, or if a commercial ticket is required. Okay, so national staff already have their index numbers and their HR profile completed as part of their onboarding process, but for you to have a clear understanding, index numbers and HR master record, it's a requirement for any traveler in Umoja. So even if the traveler is a UMB, a volunteer, or even if the traveler is a consultant and the travel administrator wants to raise a travel request on behalf of the UMB or the consultant, both UMBs, consultants, or any other non-staff category will need an index number and an HR mini-master record in Umoja. Otherwise, the travel administrator will not be able to raise any travel request on their behalf. Okay, is that clear? Let me see.
Yes,
okay,
clear.
all right. So let's move ahead. So national staff, they will raise their travel request, and then the approval process for a travel request raised by national staff is very similar to the approval process for travel requests coming from international staff. Okay, so please mute your microphone. All right. So the travel request raised by national staff will be then approved or reviewed and approved by the certifying officers that in the system are called TSA, right? These are what in the missions are called the certifying officer. They will review and certify the travel requests, and afterwards, once the certifying officer has approved the travel request, it will go to the travel processing officers, right? What we call the TPOs, right? And here we have a new role. So the TPO role that was part of Cluster 4 was the TB10 role, the normal TPO, the normal travel processing office that deals with all the requests and liases with the travel vendors in order to get tickets. Okay. With this implementation, for your information, we are incorporating a new travel processing officer role, that is the TB20, is the non-commercial travel processing officers, right? So there will be a separate team, a separate role that will review and approve all travel requests that do not have any commercial ticket, right? So let's say, for example, if it's within mission and they are traveling with UN vehicle or with a UN aircraft. So all these non-commercial travel requests will go to the non-commercial TPOs that have the role code TB20. Okay. So this is a new role that is being incorporated in this implementation. So after the travel request is fully approved, right? In case there is a vendor, a ticket involved, the travel the ticket billing process will happen, right? So the finance section will pay the vendor, right? They will execute the ticket billing process to pay the vendor, and after the traveler has come back from the travel, right? So after the trip end date, the traveler, in this case the national staff, will be able to submit the expense report. So national staff, after the trip end date, after coming back from travel, they will be able to submit their own expense reports. So you can see that this process and even the steps in the system are very similar compared to the travel for international staff. The only thing is that HR travel and entitlement travel do not apply normally to national staff. Okay, so expense reports, as we were saying, will be submitted directly by national staff, and the expense report, if there are changes in the let's say, for example, in the itinerary, and there are additional DSA to be paid or to be recovered, in that case the expense report will have to be reapproved, first step by the certifying officer or TSA, and second step by the travel claims processor or the TCP called in the system. Okay, if the expense report, if there are no changes in the expense report and the amount to be paid matches with what was paid in the as an advance in the travel request, in that case the expense report will be automatically approved, and there is no need for the TSA or the TCP to review again the expense report. So these automatically approved expense reports, it's what's called in the system the express expense reports. All right. Okay, so this was regarding national staff. It's very similar to what we have now for international. And let's talk a little bit about what's in the system for IUPs, right? For individual uniform personnel. Remember, by IUPs we mean all uniform personnel that are deployed using a commercial flight. All other uniform personnel that are not deployed with a commercial flight, like contingents or troops, they don't have access to the portal, and they will all their travel requests will be raised on behalf of them by the travel administrator. So IUPs will have access to the portal, will have access to the employee self-service, but they will only be allowed to raise within mission travel requests that do not require any commercial ticket. This is important. So if you have questions from an IUP asking you how to raise a travel request to travel outside mission area, you have to tell them that they cannot do it by themselves. They should contact the travel administrators. So if the IUP needs to travel outside mission area, or even if it's within mission area, but there is a commercial ticket involved, then the IUP cannot raise the travel request by themselves, but it has to be raised by the travel administrator on their behalf, right? So this has been a decision taken by DFS. So the normal case would be always IUPs traveling a lot within mission area and without a commercial ticket. But when there is a commercial ticket, they should, there is they should estimate what should be the cost, right, for the ticket. And the idea was to make it easier for IUPs to raise travel requests, because they normally stay 6 months or 12 months in the mission. And as you will see later on in the system, the screens have been restricted to make it easier for IUPs to raise only within mission travel request when no commercial ticket is required. Okay. All right. National staff, they were already using the portal. Okay. As a national staff, for example, you were raising leave requests or you were updating your dependents, right? So they already had access to the portal, but IUPs, they are new users to the employee self-service. They are new users to the portal, and that's why they are going through the process that national staff went through in cluster 5 or international staff in cluster 4. And so they also need a Unite ID account. So the first thing they need to have in order to connect into the portal, as for any other user, they need the Unite ID account ready and activated. All right. So all IUPs should have received, as of today, the Unite ID activation email. If not all, almost all, 99% of the IUPs should have in their email inboxes the Unite ID activation email. So this is the first thing they need to do in order to access the portal, is to activate their Unite ID. Okay. So if they have received the Unite ID activation email, they should follow the instructions to get their Unite ID account activated and to have their own password and their own security questions. Okay. In the case they haven't received, in the case they are part of the 1% that haven't received yet the Unite ID activation email, they should expect that email before this Sunday, right? So these exceptional cases will be resolved before this Sunday. And if there is any urgent trip that needs to be done for these IUPs that haven't received the activation email, they can always count on the travel administrator, right, to raise the travel request on their behalf. Okay, so if the IUP hasn't received the Unite ID activation email and they need to travel urgently, okay, they can always contact their travel administrators who will raise the travel request on their behalf. Okay, so IUPs have access to the portal, but only to raise within mission non-commercial ticket. Okay, the process to raise within mission travel and non-commercial is very similar as the one we saw for national staff. Remember, they also need an index number and an HR minimaster record. So for IUPs will get, as they will be deployed using a commercial ticket, even the deployment travel request will be raised in Umoja. So as part of their onboarding process, their index number and HR minimaster profile will be created. And when they need to raise a within mission travel request, they will already have the index number and the HR minimaster profile completed. So in the case they need to travel within mission and using non-commercial means, they can, as an IUP, they can log in into employee self-service and they can raise their own travel requests. Okay, the approval process is going to be the same as for national. So first step is the approval by the certifying officer, and the second step is the approval, in this case, by the TPO non-commercial, the TPO Lite, the new role we were talking about before. So all the travel requests submitted by the IUPs will always go to the TPO non-commercial, because as we were saying, IUPs can only raise non-commercial travel requests. Okay. There will be no ticket billing involved because there are no commercial tickets involved in all travel requests raised by IUPs. And if the travel request was raised by the IUP, then the expense report will be also raised by the IUP. Remember that expense reports can only be raised linked to a fully approved travel request and after the trip end date. So only after coming back from travel, the IUP will be able to submit the related expense report. Right. So later on, we will connect into the system and we will reemphasize that concept. Okay. So expense reports can only be raised after the travel request has been fully approved and after coming back from travel, so after the trip end date. The approval process for the expense report, it's very similar. Okay, it's a TSA and travel claims processor, the same one we were talking about before for national staff. And in the case there are no changes, okay, in terms of amount to be paid or to be recovered, the expense report will also be considered as express and will be automatically approved. So only when there are changes in the expense report will have to be reviewed again by the certifying officer and by the travel claims processor. Okay, so that was the short presentation I wanted to look at it, right? So now I'm gonna stop showing you the presentation, and I want to connect into the system, all right, and show to you the things we just discussed with a user account for national staff and for an IUP. Okay, so let me log in into the portal. Right. Remember, you can use the chat, okay, in case you have questions or comments. Remember that for national staff and IUPs, they will use the self-service, so they will always connect to the umoja.un.org, and from here they have the two buttons, right? You can see here the button for login to Umoja self-service, right? You have here this button that is the one that should be used, okay, for national staff and for IUPs, right? This one here is used by transactional users like travel administrators or so basically for in your case, and if they want to access ECC or any other Umoja component. For national staff and IUPs, they will always use the login to Umoja self-service, right? This is what we call the portal, right? So when they click into the login to Umoja self-service, as usual, the system will ask them to use their Unite ID. That's why they need to activate their Unite ID account. Okay. Regarding the presentation we just saw, we will share with all of you the presentation. Okay, so don't worry about that one. We will share with everybody the presentation, and also we are recording this session. So in case you want to go through a particular part of the session, we will also share with you the recordings. Okay, so they will use their Unite ID account to log into production, and then I'm gonna log into the training environment. Okay, that's why I'm following a slightly different steps, right? To log in instead of into production, I'm gonna use the non-production portal, the training environment, to show to you how the different screens will look like. Okay, the connectivity to log into production, it's very similar to what you were using before to log in to raise any kind of leave request. Okay, so let me connect into the portal, and let me connect as an IUP. All right, so I'm using an IUP user account. Right, so this is the portal, and this is what an IUP will see. Right, so when they connect, you can see that the user interface for an IUP has been restricted, right? So they can see basically only one tab. this is the main tab that they will use, is the IUP self-service, and they only have one option, that is the Traveler Work Center. So they don't have the option, all the HR options for national staff, like leave requests or dependents. So all the HR profile for IUPs do not apply, okay, in the portal. They only have access to the Traveler Work Center. Okay, so for leave management, for IUPs, they are not using Umoja, they are using the system they were using before this implementation. Okay, so leave requests or leave management for IUPs is not managed in Umoja. So once they click into their Traveler Work Center, right? So this is the Traveler Work Center, and here, right here, we can see, right, the different travel requests. So here in the Work Center, we can see all the travel requests that have been raised either by the IUP themselves or on behalf of the IUP. Okay, so for example, you can see here the travel category, right? So the first one appearing with number 66649, it's a within mission travel request. So this is the type of travel type that can be raised directly by the IUP. But for example, this one, the one with number 666106, it's a deployment travel, right? So this is the travel request that was raised by the travel administrator to deploy the IUP, and also appears in their Traveler Work Center. So here in their Traveler Work Center, they will see all their travel requests, the ones raised by themselves and the ones raised on their behalf. Okay, so from the Traveler Work Center, the Traveler Work Center is a very important screen, because they can see all the travel requests, and also they can see the status of the travel request. So for example, here in this column, let me scroll right, they can see here on the right, they can see the workflow status. So this workflow status means what's the status of the particular travel request. So for example, the first one, it says submitted. So it was submitted by the IUP, but it hasn't been approved, right? So it's awaiting certifying officer approval. So you have here the status, and next to the status, you have the next actions. So for the first travel request, it was submitted by the IUP, but hasn't been yet approved by the certifying officer. The second one, it's not even submitted, it was only saved, right? So the recommended action would be to send it for certifying officer approval. The third, fourth, and fifth one, they are waiting TPO approval. So they were, they are already fully approved. So the TSA approved it, and the TPO also approved the travel request. Okay, so the next step will be the IUP raising the expense report. Okay, so with the Traveler Work Center, it's from where any kind of traveler, no matter if it's an IUP or national staff, where they can understand what's the status of the different travel requests. All right, so they can look into the trip numbers, right? So they can sort by trip number and then scroll to the bottom to search for the travel request, or they could even use the filtering that they have available in the Work Center. Okay, so from the Work Center, they have the options to submit a travel request, right, using the create travel request, create official travel request, right, and they also have the button to create an expense report. So this button here, create expense report, will be used both to create an spend report linked to a travel request, or to create, in some exceptional cases, to create standalone spend reports. But as a general rule, right, all spend reports should be linked to an approved travel request. Okay. So let's click on Create Official Travel Request, and let's see. You can see that the IUPs cannot raise any other travel category. For example, HR or entitlement travel do not appear here as options for IUPs, so they can only raise official travel requests. So now I'm clicking on the Create Official Travel, and let's see which are the screens that appear, okay, for IUPs. And remember that these screens have been customized or have been restricted for IUPs. We have a question in the chat regarding the spend reports. Okay, so IUPs, basically they will raise spend reports related to within mission travel and non-commercial. So if they are able to raise the travel request, then they are able also to raise the spend report. If the travel request relates to outside mission area, trip, or needing a commercial ticket, then the travel administrator is responsible for both raising the travel request and also submitting the related expense report. Okay. So this is the first screen that appears for an IUP. So we are now an IUP. In this case, we are talking about a military observer. So this is one of the subgroups that is considered an IUP. Okay, and you will see that under the travel type field, they are only allowed to select within mission DFS travel type. This is what we were mentioning before, that they can only submit travel requests that are for within mission area. Okay, if they need to submit a travel request for outside mission area, they cannot do it by themselves, right? Because they don't have the option in the portal. They will need to contact the travel administrator, who will do it on their behalf. So as a travel type, they can only select within mission area, and they will have to agree, right? They will have to click on the checkbox to agree that their supervisor has agreed on their leave. And this is related to what we were talking before about the applicable leaves. Okay. So what did we say about the leave management for IUPs? Okay, so now you can use the yes and no button. All right, so I'm going to ask a question, and you have to reply yes or no. So will IUPs raise the leave request in Umoja? What do you think, yes or no? What did we say about that one? You have two buttons, right? The yes button, that is a kind of green check mark, and the no button. So if you go to the participants, you will have two different buttons, one that is green and a red cross that you can use to say no. Okay. All right. So so far we have only 5 people. Okay, it's increasing. All right. So please use it. I want to see what you think about. So will IUPs use Umoja to submit their leave requests? Okay, we have 15 answers. It's increasing. Okay, good. All right. Okay. Okay, so thank you for your answers. So we have 13 people that said no, and the only one that said yes. Okay, so remember, IUPs will not use Umoja for their leaves. Okay, so everybody will, I mean everybody, all the leaf requests for IUPs will not be in Umoja. They will keep using their old system for leaf management. The only thing that we are indicating here in the travel request is that the IUP agreed with their supervisor on any applicable leaf, even though the leaf is not raised in Umoja. Okay. So let me click on the next button, on the general data button, and by clicking on the general data button, the IUP will be able to indicate the itinerary and all the other details about the trip. Okay. And then in the itinerary, you will see that we have the restriction of the commercial versus non-commercial. So before in the presentation, we were saying that something related to commercial and non-commercial. So what do you think? Will IUPs be able to submit travel requests for within mission area that require a commercial ticket? Yes or no? What did we say about that one? So let's say that a staff member from UNSOS, right, is traveling from Nairobi to Mombasa, right? They are within mission area, but using a commercial ticket, right? An IUP that is deployed in UNSOS is traveling from Mombasa to Mogadishu, sorry, from Mombasa to Nairobi using a commercial ticket. Will they be able to submit their own travel requests? Okay, so yeah, I think you got it. So most of you are saying no. So the answer is no, and we will see now in the system why not. All right, so how the system is preventing the IUPs to raise this type of travel requests. So this is the next screen for an IUP. They will indicate the journey type, right? So normally it's going to be for within mission area, it's going to be always a round trip. Okay, and here I will indicate the dates. Okay, let's say I have to be there next Monday. That is going to be the 25th. Okay, so 25th of June. 25th of June, 2018. Sorry. Okay, I have to be there at 8. Sorry, at 10. And then I have to come back the 29th. Okay, so now I'm playing the role of an IUP. Okay, and I will come back. I will finish my work at 5. Right. So here in the travel purpose, they will indicate what's the purpose of the travel. So let's say it's to review, let's say, security situation in the region, security. Okay, that this as a travel purpose, then they can indicate additional comments, and at the bottom they will have the itinerary. Okay, so in the itinerary, they have to indicate only the official itinerary. So if there is a personal deviation shouldn't be included in the itinerary, and should be included as a comment in the personal deviation field. Okay, and then connection points or stopovers should only be included if there is an overnight. All right. So if there is no overnight and there are connection points or stopovers, there is no need to include that stopovers in the itinerary, right? So as long as there is no overnight or there is no change in the mode of transportation, then there is no need to indicate the stopovers or the connection points. Okay, so I have to arrive on Monday, So let's say I will be traveling the day before, okay? Let's say it's going to be the 24th. And let's say I want to put the example we were saying before, right? From Nairobi, okay? So I want to travel from Nairobi to Mombasa, okay? So it's loading. They can just start typing the city, and the city will appear, okay? Or they can use the matchbox to look for the city and country, okay? But it has to be, it's not free text. They can start typing, but then the system will load the different options and they have to select, right? So based on the city and the country, also the subsistence allowance will be populated, right? So it's important not to indicate here free text, but to select one of the options. So then, as a mode of travel, you will see that the commercial air flight is not available. The commercial airline option is not available. So they are not able to submit the travel request directly by themselves. If they want to travel from Nairobi to Mombasa, they cannot do it by themselves because they cannot select commercial airline as a mode of travel. They can only select UN aircraft and all the non-commercial mode of travel, right? So in this case, if you want to travel from Nairobi to Mogadishu, right, where there is UN aircraft, then in that case, we can the IUP can do it by themselves, okay? And let's say that we can specify the arrival date, and we can specify as arrival city Mogadishu, okay? And then they will specify also the applicable subsistence. So as an IUP, they are not entitled to DSA, and they are entitled for any MSA that could come as consequence of the travel, right? So depending on your mission and depending on the travel, you will need to select one specific rate for MSA. So depending on if the accommodation is provided at destination, if meals are provided, so there should be a kind of a table in each mission, right? So depending on the MSA to be paid because of the travel, they should select one option or another one as MSA, right? So you can see that there are 4 different MSA options depending on the different components that are provided at destination. Okay? So in this case, we are going to select one of them, and they also need to select the region that is automatically populated as all areas if we select the MSA full option. Okay. All right. So we have included the way in for the itinerary. In order to include also the way out, okay, we can copy, right? So I recommend you to copy the existing line, and the system will automatically copy the first line so that we can indicate the return, right? We can indicate the details for the way out. So for the way out, let's say that we are returning on the same day we finish the travel, the 29th, and in this case we go from Mogadishu to Nairobi using a UN aircraft also on the 29th. So the arrival country is going to be Nairobi, and for the way back, right, so we can leave it like that, or on the way back there is no DSA MSA payable, but anyway the system will not pay anything on the way back. Okay, the IUP will then select if there is a personal deviation or not, right? Normally there will be no personal deviation for within mission IUPs. Okay. All right, so if they select yes, they will need to specify requested itinerary. So if there is a personal deviation, here they have the space to indicate the requested itinerary. Okay, but normally it's going to be a no for a personal deviation. And I'm going to click on next screen to go to the the page where we can request for advance, or where we can indicate other details, okay, like the cost assignment or anything else. Okay, so let's wait a little bit for the screen to load. The screens for the national staff are very similar in terms of travel types. National staff can select not only within mission but also outside mission area, and also the mode of travel for national staff are not restricted only to non-commercial, so they can also raise travel requests using a commercial ticket, using for example a commercial airline. Okay, so the page already loaded for an IUP, so they will have to indicate if they are carrying any firearm, okay, any gun. That's for TPO purpose, to see if there is any, for example, for the UN flight, if there will be any firearm getting into the airplane. Okay, then deductions. They can indicate here any deduction to the MSA rates, so they can indicate in the deductions page if these are the percentages for accommodation, meals, but these ones apply more for DSA, so I don't think they will be used much for IUPs, because the reductions are not based on percentages. Okay, but in case they want to use it, they always have the options to use the enter deductions that will modify the MSA to be paid. Right. So as you can see, the estimated costs were already populated, 500. So this 500 is based on the itinerary, right? Is based. So if we click on the enter itinerary and the enter estimated cost, you can see that this 500 relates to the subsistence allowance, to the MSA, that is based on the number of days that the IUP will be away, and also on the MSA selection, right? So this 500 is based on the selection here. So if we go back to the last screen and we change in the itinerary any of the days, so if, for example, if we reduce the number of days, the amount will change. Or, for example, if we change, instead of MSA full, we change to the fourth option, to MSA with the standard accommodation provided. If we change as an IUP, we change the applicable subsistence, and we go again to the next screen, we will see that the estimated cost as applicable subsistence will be now different. So instead of 500, the system automatically changed the enter estimated costs. All right. So the travel advance, the IUP can indicate if they want to request for an advance, okay, and how they want the advance to be paid. They can select bank transfer, right, and here they will have the bank account that is specified in their HR profile. In the training environment for this user, there is no bank account indicated, but they will have their own bank account here as indicated in their HR profile, or they can also select other and indicate that they want to receive the advance as a check, or later on, or even with cash. Okay, so they can select the way they want to get the advance. Right, you can see that the system automatically defaulted the amount to be paid as the advance. So you can see that it's not the total, right? So they will not receive the total. They will only receive 75% of the MSA, right? So they are, instead of receiving $300, they are receiving 75% as an advance, and the rest will be paid when the expense report is submitted. Okay. The TP office is defaulted by the system and cannot be changed. The same thing as for the tickets to be issued through. So all travel requests raised by the IUPs will have the option ticket not provided by the UN, because they cannot raise travel requests that relate to commercial ticket. The estimated cost we set that is defaulted by the system using the itinerary, okay? And then the cost assignment is also defaulted by the system based on the profile of the IUP. So based on the to which mission is the IUP assigned, all right? But can be changed by using the change cost assignment button. Okay. So, for example, let's see. Wait a second. Okay. All right. So, if they want to change the cost assignment, they can click on the change cost assignment button, and from here they should be able, right, to change the cost center that will be paying that that will be paying for that trip. Normally, the cost assignment will be correct, okay, and will be based on the or unit of the traveler, right, based on the mission where the IUP has been deployed. Okay. This cost assignment can also be changed by the TSA, all right, or even by the if the TSA checks that the cost assignment, the cost center paying for that trip is the wrong one, the TSA can either change it by themselves, and then if they are not allowed to approve the travel request for that other cost assignment, for that other cost center, they can forward the travel request to the proper certifying officer. Okay. So in the enter estimated cost, we said that the MSA will be automatically populated. IUPs, they can also add new expenses as any other type of traveler. So in case there are any other additional expense, like medical expenses or any other expenses that should be included in the travel request, they can do it, right? They can select the travel expense type, and they can indicate the currency and the amount. All right, they can do it using the enter estimated cost. So after this information has been included, they will review the details of the travel request, and from there they are able to submit the travel request. Okay, let's see if the screen loads, because I also want to spend a couple of minutes showing to you how to submit a linked expense report, because the experience of cluster 4 and cluster 5, we had a lot of issues with the standalone expense reports because people didn't know how to submit a expense report that is linked to a already approved travel request, right? So I'm just completing the travel request part. Okay. Let's see if I get the green message. Otherwise, it was just an example. Okay. All right. So we have a question regarding the estimated cost for MSA. So if it's not correct, right? So as an IUP, you will have to understand what is your entitlement in terms of what should be paid to you in terms of MSA, okay? And based on what you are entitled to, then you have to select the proper configuration for the MSA rate, right? Remember that in the itinerary there were 4 different rates. There were 4 different rates for the subsistence allowance, and each of them have a different amount. And if none of them matches with your entitlement, then in the enter estimated cost, the IUP or the certifying officer will be able to manually amend the amount to be paid, all right, as an MSA. Okay, but I think more information will come in terms of MSA, because I think missions are working there in kind of making the MSA rate standard. So I think more will come in terms of how to select the proper MSA rate for all IUPs that are now submitting the travel requests in Umoja. Okay, but if there are questions in terms of which MSA rate to select, okay, then the HR office in each mission should be the one indicating what's the entitlement and which amount should they be selecting in the travel request. Okay, so we just submitted the travel request, and now it should appear here in the work center. In fact, it's the first one, the one from the 24th to the 29th. Okay, from the destination we said it was Mogadishu, and if we look at the status, we can see that it's submitted and it's awaiting certifying officer approval. Okay, so we saw the screens for the travel request. So let's now focus on the expense report part. Okay, and let's see what's the difference in the system about submitting an expense report that is linked to a travel request and an expense report that is standalone. Okay, so remember that standalone expense reports should only be used in exceptional cases. So normally, the normal case would be for any trip to have an approved travel request, and only after coming back from travel, the IUP or national staff will submit the related expense report. So in order to submit an expense report, we click on Create Expense Report. So we don't even need to select the travel request here. So there is no need to select anything on the Work Center. We can select nothing. Right? We shouldn't be selecting anything. Right? So don't select anything, because at this stage we are not yet indicating if we are submitting a related expense report or a standalone. So as an IUP, we will click the Create Expense Report, and the system will drive us to this screen, right? This Create Expense Report screen. And here we have, in the available travel request, we have all the travel requests that are fully approved and with a trip end date in the past. So you can see that, for example, the travel request that we just raised is not appearing here. The travel with destination Mogadishu, the one we just raised, is not appearing here. And it's not appearing here because of 2 different reasons. The first one is that that travel request is not yet approved, right? It's still pending TSA and TPO approval. And the other reason is that the destination we said it was, sorry, the trip end date, we said it was the 29th of June. So only the 30th of June we will be able to submit the related expense report if the travel request was fully approved. Right? And this is very important. So if as an IUP you want to raise an expense report linked to a travel request, and the travel request is not showing here, you shouldn't be submitting a standalone. So if they ask you, how can I submit the expense report and the travel request is not appearing here? So if that's the question, they should be going to the IUP self-service, right? They should be going to the Traveler Work Center to check what's the status of the travel request. So they will come into the Traveler Work Center, and they will check for the workflow status, and they will check also for the end date. right? So in our example, our trip request, our trip number, we can see that the end date is 29th June, right? The 29th June. So we are still the 20th. So today is 20th, so we cannot submit the related spend report. And even more, if we go and check the travel status, the workflow status, we can see that the travel request is not yet fully approved. The status is still submitted. In order to submit the spend report, the status should be TO fully approved. So these TO fully approved are the ones that are appearing in the screen to submit the related expense reports. So as an IUP, if I want to submit the related expense report, I should be finding my travel request here. I should be selecting the travel request I want to submit the expense report for, and then if I click on Start, you see that this trip number is 66320, right? This is the trip number. If we click on Start, the expense report will be the same. The expense report number, you can see that the expense report number is the same, 66320. That is the same number as of the travel request. Okay. For the exceptional cases where there is a need to submit a standalone expense report, for example, the IUP was meant to go to Mogadishu, but for some reason the travel request was cancelled, but the IUP still had some expenses, let's say, for example, for a visa, or for example, for some medical vaccines, right? In that case, the standalone expense report can be used. And how do we submit the standalone expense report? So instead of selecting the travel request, we go to the button, right, where it stands as a standalone expense report. The IUP will select official business travel as a travel type, and they will select Start. Okay, they will select Start, and the system is even warning the IUP. So no approved travel request is linked or is associated with this standalone expense report. So the IUP will understand with this screen that they are not linking the expense report with any related and approved travel request, but that will be a standalone expense report. Okay. So time is over. I think I even took 5 minutes more than expected. Okay. So sorry about that. I mean, we didn't cover all the different functionalities for IUPs and national staff, but at least you have a brief overview of the of what the changes, okay, because of this implementation. And we will be sending to you the presentation and also the recording. And we are located in the RSE for 2 weeks, so until next week. And in case you have questions, you can send us email or just call us. Okay. So without any further delay, I'm going to close the session, and thank you very much for attending. Thank you so much.